Well, hi everyone. This country is totally stuffed. There's absolutely no question about this. The more I read about what's going on in this country, the more I despair for it. The country is stuffed, and with our politicians to blame, and also the education system, which has resulted in a whole generation coming up without the ability to think things through. It's totally stuffed. A small item in yesterday's paper. Well, you may be aware, by the way, that we have a bunch of ratbags who wander around chopping down statues of Captain Cook and other colonial people, particularly Cook, because they think he was responsible for settling Australia. They don't even get their history right. Cook, if you like, discovered, many people had discovered Australia before Cook did. He discovered the east coast probably, but he was not responsible for settling Australia whatsoever. In fact, he did try his utmost to get on with the local Aboriginal people. However, the ratbags in our society have been wandering around with angle grinders cutting down or destroying statues of Captain Cook, particularly around Australia Day, which they really hate because they hate Australia. So recently, of course, in the Council of Yarra, who are so left-wing they fall off the end of the table, they managed to chop down a statue of Captain James Cook in the Edinburgh Gardens. And now the council has decided, oh, well, we're not going to replace, it's going to cost a lot. And, we're going to have to worry about security, and so it's just too hard. Let them win. So they let the bastards win. Unbelievable. Put the bloody statue back up and do something proper about it. You can't let the bastards win. Not with this sort of stuff. Put the statue back up. And perhaps while you're at it, you might try and somehow teach these idiots that if they're concerned about colonialism, A, perhaps they should not take advantage of all the benefits that colonialism has brought them, and B, they ought to learn a bit of history about Captain James Cook. So that's just the first item for today. We'll just pause here for a moment. I'll be right back. And here I am. The world's going to hell in a basket at the moment. In the case of Trump's re-election, I actually was quite prepared to give him the benefit of the doubt, and I think a few things he's done needed doing. But this tariff business, he reminds me very much of the attitude of our glorious state leader, Jacinta Allen, who, in spite of all of the advice she's got, all of the financial advice she's got, she's going to go ahead with what she wants to do because she knows it's right. She's going to build the SRL and bankrupt the state even further than is possible. They just, in this situation, people don't listen to anyone else. Jacinta Allen's doing it at the moment. Trump is doing it as well. So, of course, Australia, together with much of the rest of the world, has received increased tariffs on our exports to the USA. Now, in today's paper, this is Sunday the 6th of April, consumers may pay twice as much for supermarket beef, with restaurant patrons also hit in the wake of US President Donald Trump's tariff on US Aussie exports. Industry experts have slammed the 10% beef tariff, which began on Saturday, as disgraceful and a kick in the guts for farmers and consumers. A doubling of prices would see Scotch fillet steak, now $50 a kilo, to hit $100, and beef mince jumping from $13 to $26. Tammy Jonas of the Australian Food Sovereignty Alliance said, quote, "Supermarket prices could double if we radically increase exports, and the way the federal government is going hell for leather on free trade agreements, that is a reality." Hey? That's what she said. Dr. Jonas, we'll come back to that,
also said that countries slapped with much higher US tariffs, such as China, Japan and Korea, would retaliate and turn to Australia for beef. So she's saying, you know, all right, Americans are going to cut us out, but we'll get markets elsewhere. The likelihood of Australian exporters shifting to Asian markets, she said, is pretty high. And if you can get more overseas, why would you not? But as more of our beef goes overseas, supply shrinks here, so local consumers pay more. What? Hang on a minute, Tammy. Hang on a minute. Now, if at the moment, let's go back a couple of weeks, if, for example, the Australian beef exporters could get a better return by exporting to Southeast Asian countries rather than the US, they would be doing that right now. Huh? So now you're saying, oh, we can't go to the US, but there's this big market in Asia where we'll be able to sell all of our beef over there, and then that will increase the price for Australians. If that market existed, it would have already been developed, Tammy. Yes. Now, I went back and had another look at this particular article, and it does refer to her as the head of the Australian Food Sovereignty Alliance. Yeah, it's an interesting article, isn't it? The Australian Food Sovereignty. So I did, of course, the Google search on this, and there's quite a nice website there. And when you delve deep into it, you find that it is actually laden with green First Nations propaganda. No question of that at all. And it has, the Australian Food Sovereignty Alliance has a whole about 250 members throughout Australia. It's such a big and important organisation. And you can tell that by the wonderful pronouncements that Tammy made. I also referred to the fact that she was Dr. Jonas. And again, thank you, Google. I did a bit of a test on this. Now, I found out she's a PhD from Western Australia, but prior to that, she'd had 8 years trying to get a PhD at Melbourne, and it was incompleted. Makes you wonder how much hex that she managed to rattle up between 8 years at Melbourne and God knows how many years at Western Australia before she got a PhD. And they really do hand out PhDs these days for nothing. I actually had a look at her thesis, and fair dinkum. I mean, it's an example of how they just hand out PhDs for nothing. Now, look, I have a Doctor of Science, a serious doctorate degree, not this PhD crap that they hand out for so many, particularly in the humanities these days. It's absolute bullshit. You don't get, there's no research, there's no absolutely anything in these at all. And I never use my doctor title, partly because I don't like the way that people like Tammy use it by referring herself as doctor. You're trying to impress people. Because you have a doctorate, you're smart, and therefore you should listen to what they say. So, Tammy, I think your PhD is, shall we say, not up to the mark in given the fact that most PhDs in humanities these days are pretty ordinary. But more than anything, I don't think you should be trying to be an economist and point out that since America no longer will have our beef, we're going to have a more lucrative market overseas. We'll send all our beef over there, and so the price of Australian beef will go up. Sorry, Tammy, that's not on. That's not on. But it is rather frightening to read her PhD and the Australian Food Sovereignty website. As I say, I despair of the future of this country when I read such nonsense. Such nonsense. So just two little things there. Coming back to the fabulous Jacinta Allen and the suburban rail loop, interestingly enough, when they first announced the suburban rail link in 2023, around about between 60 and 80% of the people in the area affected thought it was a great idea. Now the details have come out, that's slumped to 20%. But does Jacinta care? No, going to go ahead. Does Jacinta care that Infrastructure Australia says it's an absolute waste of money? No, going to go ahead. Does Jacinta care? No, she doesn't. She's not going to be there. She'll go out on a pension, and the rest of us poor benighted taxpayers and our kids will be paying for this white elephant forever. Honestly, this state, this world. Now, I see where Tony Mockbell has been released on bail, at least while the court's considering whether or not his sentences should be quashed and so forth. Doubtless, if they are, the old taxpayer will be paying money to him again in one form or another. I'm not going to comment on the particular case, but sometimes it's happened quite often where you know these guys are guilty and they get out on what is a technicality. I can't go along with this. I think if you know they're bloody guilty, they're guilty, sentence them and let them stay in prison. If there's a technicality and it works the benefit of the community, I have no problem with it whatsoever. I know the lawyers will go berserk about this, but let's be reasonable about it. If there's a technicality, but it's proven that the guy's done it, keep him in jail. My view on it. Another little exercise. Apparently at one of our footy matches the other night at the MCG, two guys evaded the security checks and got him with a couple of guns, and it was only discovered when they were playing up, the police intervened and the gun fell out of the pocket, and everyone was absolutely outraged, as of course you would expect to be. So now there's a knee-jerk reaction, of course. Security's got to be increased on the off chance that someone else might come in with a gun. And so we've now got 45 minutes waiting to get into the MCG for security. I wonder how much longer this will last. It's a knee-jerk reaction. It's going to be watered down in the future. There's nothing surer than that. The difficulty, of course, is there's no real way. If people really want to get guns in or whatever, they will. And of course, that still doesn't stop small lives and so forth getting in. It's very difficult to do so. And it's very sad that in today's society we've had to do this. We certainly have never had to do this in the past. There's an article here about the impact of voters under about 40 and all the millennials that will be voting for the first time in our upcoming federal election, which looks as though it's a shoo-in for the Labor Party, most unfortunately. Australians never learn. Victorians never learn. However, a couple of little points here. 28% of 18 to 34-year-olds would prefer a Greens-Labor coalition government. 28%. It's almost 1 in 3 would prefer a Greens-Labor coalition government. Because the problem is these guys have never lived. Putting the Greens into power would be a disaster for this country. 14% would like a Greens crossbench to have a controlling voice. Another total disaster. That's 42% would like the Greens to have a controlling voice in an Albanese government. Well, the young voters, you're going to have to live with it. You'll have to live with the outcomes of this. You will regret it. There's nothing surer than that. And 6%, so that gives us almost 50%, would like a Teal community independence crossbench. Oh, that's wonderful. All of independents, all supposedly independent, so all supposedly pulling in different directions, except they all pull towards the Greens left. So you got the same thing in any case. No despair of this upcoming election, unfortunately. Another 4 years of Labor with their energy policies will really destroy Australia. You put that together with the stupidity of the energy policies in Victoria, it's just unspeakable what's going to happen in the next 4 years to Australia and energy costs. And just remember, you people out there, you voted for it, particularly you young people. I don't think there's any hope, unfortunately, for the Liberal Party. I could be wrong, but it doesn't look like it at this stage. No, nothing much more can be done about that. So on Monday, tomorrow, it'll be interesting to see what the Dow does. I think this next week is going to be brutal on the stock market. It rounds me off. You know, in the time of the global financial crisis around 2007, the All Ordinaries was 6,500 and the Dow was 12,000. Immediately after that, the All Ords dropped to about 3,500 and the Dow to 6,000. Since then, the Dow has gone from 6,000 to 40,000. 6 times it's gone up. Since then, the Australian stock market has gone from 3,000 to 7,000. And now it's likely to go back down to around about where it was in 2007. Do not tell me that shares are the way to go for investments. It's what you learn after a while. The best place to invest your money is in land. There's absolutely no question of that. You look at the price of land in that time, you're doing a great deal better than anything you could get out of the share market. Certainly if you just follow the particular benchmarks of the Dow or the Australian Stock Exchange, the All Ordinaries. So yes, we're doing pretty badly here, and again, we can blame our politicians and the fact that they haven't been allowing efficiency in the country by protecting inefficient practices, which is what they do on both sides of Parliament. No, I think that's probably it for the day. I do despair of the future. The young people that are voting this time around, they will have to live with it for much longer than us old folk. Serve them right. They'll probably learn, but to some extent, I think we can blame the education system. The education system has brainwashed too many of these young people, and they are going to have to live with the outcome of this in the future. So that's about it. I will be back with more grumbling and groaning about the world in due course. Take care. Bye for now.